working. I work like 16 hours almost every day. And then my brother said, so I was at work, and then he said, today's the last day of competition, and then this gardening stuff. And I said, well, I'm not home right now. It was, I think it was 8:30 in the morning. And then he said, I don't have time to go home. And he said, send me a picture of your garden because you might be lucky. So I said, I don't have time because I'm far, right? So I'm in Caledon at the Grange Side Road. And she said, well, okay, I go down there in your place and I take a pictures. I said, well, I'm not sure if you can get a good picture. So he did well. And then he sent it. And then the next, I'm not really in Facebook right now because I'm so busy, right? Working outside. I have three jobs. So now he said, and then when the winners come out, he said, you won, like you are the best floral home gardener. And I said, oh my God. So I was so happy for that because it's not just like, it's just like the garden, like these plants. I don't know how to express them, but it's so amazing that back in the Philippines, we can't grow this kind of plants. The plants here in Canada is different back home. We have all tropical plants. And the tropical plants there cannot live in the ground here. It should be indoor, right? So, and then every time I look at them, it's just like amazing. So I keep growing. And then this is the way. And then I said, well, go for this competition because, so now I got it. I'm so happy. It takes a while. Some of them 3 years, 4 years, yeah, 5 years. These guys here grow like been here for quite a while. Hydrangea's been here for 4 years or 5 years, but when you cut it on spring or in autumn, then the next year they will pop up, right? So. But I do love gardening because when I moved here in Orangeville, we have this apartment, and then even though, because I feel attracted right away with the flowers here in Canada, because in the Philippines we don't have this kind. Anything hibiscus we have that one, but this one we can't grow there. So I get attracted and then say I have to learn, I have to mold them and then grow them. So experience, no, but as I said, when I look at them, I have to say to them, I have to look after you. I have to grow you. I have to nourish you. So that's how I grow them. On the front yard, I make it sure because the backyard is the place where we always sit down most of the time. I just like to be, when I go out in the front, I want to see flowers too. So that's why I created a lot of beds in there or landscape in there. So, and here when you go outside, evening side time, it's nice to be here in a cooler place, right? So that's why I even planted even though the municipality land over there because I don't know where to put anymore. But I just like them to be a part of my in my ground. So I do the research. If I'm not sure about it, then I have to make it sure because sometimes people say if I go to a greenhouse, they would say that do not touch the ground, do not touch the roots. And then there are some, they say that you have to wash the roots first before you plant it in the ground. So I'm thinking that which is correct, which is not correct, or which is the one which is correct, right? So, but I sometimes I go with my instinct. I said if the roots is healthy, and then you put a healthy soil, and then you put your hands in there, and then you look after them with water, they will grow. They will bloom 100%. May is the best time for them. Today if you come up, let's say for example it's the 24th of May, and then I go out in the garden and I said they are already no snow, no frost. But there is a frost sometimes, but it's just like you can already grow the plants, right? So, and then that's the time that I really put my hands in there and then start them to fertilize, to put soil, good soil, and cut or water them. For me, my plants is really like us, like in a day we need 8 gallons of water. How many gallons of water we need? That's how the plants too. Yeah. If they're big enough, then they need more water. So that's how I feed them. Yeah. They need to drink. The secret of the plants is water. Once you plant it, water them all the time, because the roots needs to, if once the roots is okay or alive or healthy, they will just bloom. But if the roots is not healthy, then they are not going to bloom. In this town, because we're in a small town, right? I just moved here 2004. We came from the Philippines, and when we moved, I work in Caledon as a nanny, and then when I came here in Orangeville, this is a small town, and I know it's only 28,000, but now it's growing. But I was thinking, like, in a small town, people should do greeny stuff because we are not in Toronto. We're not high, tall buildings. So if we get more greeny stuff in our surroundings, I think we live better. And then I tell you, the gardening is the most healthy exercise. You don't need to go to the gym to do exercise. This is more a lot of exercise, like stretching and everything. Everything in one, yes. I know lots of people, 72 years old, they do gardening. They live like, I have one friend that she said she's already 72. She never gets sick because she's always outside the garden. And she said she needs another 20 years, so okay. A lot of work, but once I'm in my garden, I can't, I just stay in my garden. Even though sometimes I was thinking like it's nighttime, I can stay in my garden until 11 at night. And then I just spray myself and then so that no mosquitoes. But once in my garden, I love to be, just stay there. Yeah, I just be with them. This is my stress reliever. If I get so stressed or I'm so tired, I go down here and do something with them, then I feel better.
I might toot my own horn here. It looks impressive. It's easy to do. It's really not too difficult. If I can do it, anybody can. Take a seed, put it in the ground, give it some water, give it some sun. Nature does everything else. I'm just the facilitator. I saw on the Orangeville Communities in Bloom Facebook page that there was a contest open, and I looked at some of the categories. It was best edible garden, best container garden, best business. Obviously, we're not applicable for best business. And I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. Let's go for best edible garden. So I gathered a bunch of pictures, and my wife helped me, and submitted them, and good news came a couple days ago saying we won. I'm not exactly sure what the criteria was. I tried to take a picture of everything in the garden here. The greenhouse, the planters in front of the greenhouse. I have some apple trees I recently planted. I tried to send those in as part of an edible garden. The rain barrel that's over there, we have a 1,000-liter rain barrel. Some of the seeds I've started indoors, like I take a lot of pictures along the way. So some of the seeds that I've started indoors, my little grow light setup, I send pictures of that. I tried to send a picture of everything along the way. And I guess the judges like that, and they selected us. Okay, good. I find it really rewarding. I like coming out here. I feel good when I come out here. I get to hear the birds, hear the lawnmowers, enjoy some of the shade of the trees. And I just find it really rewarding, be able to produce my own food. We save all our seeds in the fall, and we start all our seeds in the springtime, and then we come out and plant them. So it's a very closed cycle. It's a very closed loop. So I know where the seeds are coming from. I know what's going in the ground. I know what's going in the plants, and I know what's going in me when I eat them. We started it in 2016. We bought this house in February. Didn't move in until the fall, but we started the garden the next month in March. So right away, I knew I wanted to have a garden. I chose this area over here because obviously there's a little bit of sunlight because the maple trees here shade the back half of it. We first started in the ground. We just kind of did rows like you would see on a typical large commercial farm. And then 2 years after we started that, I built raised beds to try to keep everything a little more organized, everything a little neater. And this way I'm not walking on all the crops. Because if you want to harvest a crop with the conventional rows, you need to walk between them. You can trample the crops. You can compact the soil, which is something you don't want. So with the raised beds, it kind of avoids all that. So that's why I set it up like that. I like the tomatoes. I guess a lot of people enjoy growing tomatoes, but I really like the tomatoes because you get to see the growth, how even within a week it can grow an extra foot. It's quite impressive how large they get. And then the flavor of them, the flavor is really good. We have some large tomatoes. They're about, they can be palm size, or 2 palm size, I guess. They're called brandywine tomatoes, and then down to little cherry tomatoes, which are extremely sweet. There's quite a variety in tomatoes. And again, we save all the seeds and we start them again the next year. I'm subject to the weather. If it's too sunny, not enough sun, too much rain, not enough rain. So I kind of just have to roll with the punches, as the saying goes. That's why we have a rain barrel to supplement any lack of rain. I try to mulch to try to keep the soil moist underneath the surface of the soil, and try to choose the right plant for the right place. Like over here at the area closest to us, I try to plant some of the less sun-dependent crops, like beets and lettuce and spinach, and towards the back is where I put the corn, the peppers, and the tomatoes, things that need a lot more sun. Yeah, every day, every couple hours, I'm checking the weather. We actually have a little weather sensor that we keep in the greenhouse, and it gives real-time temperature of the temperature in the greenhouse, and it's Bluetooth to my phone, so I can check. If it's getting too low, then I know to close up the greenhouse and bring everything inside. Well, we don't use any pesticides. There's not a whole lot of wildlife. There's dogs on either side of us, so it might help to keep some of the rabbits and the squirrels at bay. There's a little chipmunk that runs around here, but it doesn't really eat too much. In terms of bugs, I just deal with it. I let, if the bugs are going to eat something, they're going to eat something. It doesn't bother me too much. What I try to do is try to spread everything out. So I have a cabbage here, I have a cabbage there, I have a cabbage there. So if, say, a cabbage worm will infect a cabbage here, it might not find the one that's over here. Kale in here, again, borage. But, the borage comes in, or sorry, the bees are attracted to the borage. They come in, they'll probably pollinate some of the pumpkins. Yeah, there's a bee right here. It's, I believe this is a cosmos. Yep. So a lot of these things are actually self-seeding, so I don't even have to do a whole lot. They'll just come up year after year. They'll just drop their seeds, and back they go. The spinach here has bolted. You can see some of the seeds are actually starting to form on it. So I'll let them dry, and I'll harvest the seeds and just start spinach again in the springtime. Or if they dry in time, I can do them for the fall. It's a good pea. Okay, we'll have to get those soon. And yeah, the borage comes into play again. It's everywhere. There's dill intermixed. I just throw the dill everywhere, and if it comes up, it comes up. I'm not too concerned about, I try to make it a little bit aesthetically pleasing, but overall, you know what? I just try to have everything kind of random. I don't like monoculture. I like everything spread out. Sunflower here, tomato here. This is all the garlic. Squash over here. Well, we got the greenhouse last September. We found it from the local Habitat for Humanity store. It was on a great price. It was more than half the price of a retail version. So April's coworker saw it, told her, and she went and picked it up right away. Very expensive, spontaneous purchase, but it was worth it. So it's 84 square feet. It's 6 feet wide and 14 feet long. We use it to keep all the seedlings in, some of the tender seedlings in the springtime, tomatoes, peppers, melons, that type of thing. And then right now I've brought in some eggplants. I brought in some of the crops that weren't doing as well outside. There's a couple tomatoes and peppers in here. Just as an experiment, I want to see how these crops will do keeping them in the greenhouse versus keeping them outside in the direct sun. Just as an experiment, just something to do. Then I try to keep some of the, try to store some of my garden tools and implements and all that stuff in here, all the containers. Well, it keeps the heat in. It lets me start the season earlier and extend it a little bit in the fall. But I don't really know how these things will do, some of these tomatoes and peppers will do in here versus the garden. It's going to be an experiment. I want to see if maybe the increased temperature and humidity in here will affect them beneficially or adversely. just an experiment, just to see what it'll be like. And then next year I can maybe fine tune what I do a little bit and have more things growing in here versus out there. Yeah, so I have a couple, raised beds in here. There's some oregano in here. These things have bolted. These are coriander, which is cilantro, and some parsley. And yeah, these are the eggplants here. And probably sometime next month, I'll be loading it up with lettuce and kale and try to keep them going for the winter.
Seen the signs around town last year, some winners, and we just decided we should give it a chance. We've put a lot of work into making our house look the way we want it, and we want to inspire some friendly competition within the neighborhood.
I think after a couple of years of having some fun, moving things around, getting it how we want it to look, it seemed like the right year to put the house in for the first time. So I think when we first bought the house, it was kind of, well, it was very much a blank canvas. The fences were falling down, it was gardens, but there really wasn't much happening. And I think from our perspective, what we wanted to do was really bring it to life. Add some green, add some textures. That being said, I'm more of the construction side of things, the smash and bang. But when it comes to the design, I leave that to Daniela.
Yeah, I think it kind of evolved into what it is today.
Home handiwork, basic construction, that sort of thing, landscaping. But Daniela,
I am a landscape architect, so my background is in design and plants and outdoor, just general spaces. I do more natural environment design, so residential is definitely not my strong suit. We sort of have had our plan evolve, and we did a few things at a time. So we had our wall put in, and from there we built the gardens around that. So I think the wall was the main feature that we knew we wanted from the start. For the most part, we had a good idea of what we wanted to put in, and just trying to see what would actually do well in that environment. There's a mix of a bunch of things, some shade plants and some sun plants in some very specific environments, and we've tried to plant for what best suits that spot. We have a big Norway maple, which is a challenge itself because it's very dry, a lot of shade. So just to find the plants that would do well in that environment was a challenge. I don't think we worked any more than we normally do, so it's, again, a few hours every week, just maintaining the gardens.
Essentially, since we purchased the house 6 years ago, I'd say it's been kind of an ongoing process, as you said, ongoing process, probably a few hours every week, sometimes a little bit more depending on the size of the construction project, and just trying to get it to where you want it to be and where you're comfortable with.
Building and installing the gardens took the better part of a summer, and watering, lots of watering, establishing a lawn to just get to that starting point. That was the biggest task.
Yeah, and I guess when we put the stone wall in up front as well, a lot of what was there had to be moved or moved around just while the construction was happening. And that was 2.5 years ago, roughly. And once we got that in place, it made it more of a pressing concern to get things back in the ground, get them where you want them, and kind of at the same time learn how they're going to adapt to the new wall.
I think everything generally is doing pretty well. So we have some really strong shade because of the Norway maple, but we have some yews growing beneath. We have an understory tree. It's a blue beech, which is growing very well, and one day that will succeed and take place of large maple once that maple dies.
Get it all
We've
in,
lost lots. Bad winters, ice storms. The gardens are still relatively new, so they'll take some time to fill in, but I think they've been a few years now growing. Every year is different. Weather's not very predictable, so.
And I think the biggest challenge up front is with the large Norway, because it has such an expansive canopy. It really takes a lot of the water away, so it protects the plants a lot of times from the heavy rainstorms, heavy winds.
Yeah.
But the downside with that is you spend a lot more time trying to get water to it when you need to water your garden to keep everything alive.
The biggest is getting things to grow underneath that Norway maple.
Yeah.
It's just very dry shade. Lots of roots. It's pretty old, pretty established, so it sucks a lot of the water out. So it's just finding plants that are compatible in that environment.
And I think as well, Danielle has built a little rock garden around the bottom of the maple. Initially, I was unfamiliar with what was growing under it, so I think the biggest challenge for me was not taking the trimmer to everything and cutting it all down, which only happened once.
And never again.
And never again. So I would say for me, it's not my first passion, but because I like how the end result looks, I'm a very good assistant and very good at.
Tom's not allowed to do any of the weeding, though.
I'm good at taking commands.
And for me, I think it's just seeing everything come together at the end and kind of seeing the green. Gardening in general is a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of moving things. And anyone who comes in with a big plan and it's exactly the way that they pictured it from the start to the finish, then I'd like to know their secret, because
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to be the way it works. Especially because plants are living things and they're so dependent on weather and the conditions.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback right off of that, where you can take as much time as you want to try and make it exactly how you want, but at the end of the day, every property is a little bit different, every house is a little bit different, so what might work here may not work down the road. So I think it's just a matter of, as Danielle said, trial and error.